May 18, 1974, 8 o'clock in the morning. Deep in the Rajasthan desert, the ground suddenly trembles. Sand erupts into the sky, and a mushroom cloud begins rising over the Thar Desert. In that moment, India becomes the world's sixth nuclear power. Without permission from anyone, the world is stunned. Because according to international law, India was not supposed to have nuclear weapons at all. The global rulebook said only 5 countries were allowed to possess them, but India had just broken that rule. To understand why that explosion shocked the world, we need to go back to the late 1960s. Nuclear weapons had already reshaped global politics after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 5 countries possessed the bomb: the United States, the Soviet Union, Britain, France, and China. So in 1968, they drafted a treaty called the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Its logic was simple and brutally unfair. The 5 nuclear powers would keep their weapons. Everyone else would promise never to build them. India read the treaty carefully. Then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's government made a decision that would define the next 50 years. India refused to sign. Indian leaders called the treaty nuclear apartheid. In their view, it permanently locked global power into the hands of a few nations who already possessed thousands of warheads. India did not trust that system. And quietly, without telling the world, it began building something extraordinary. The program was hidden inside India's civilian nuclear energy infrastructure. On paper, scientists were researching reactors and energy technology. In reality, scattered laboratories were designing a nuclear device. The entire operation was wrapped in secrecy so tight that even many government officials had no idea it existed. The project eventually received a code name that sounded almost absurd for something so dangerous: Smiling Buddha. The bomb itself was assembled piece by piece across multiple locations. No single team handled the entire device. Even the scientists working on the final assembly were not completely certain it would work. Nuclear tests are unforgiving. Either the device detonates perfectly, or the entire secret collapses in front of the world. In the early hours of May 18th, the device was lowered into a shaft dug deep beneath the desert sand of Pokhran. The scientists retreated. The countdown began. Then the desert exploded. The ground lifted. Dust and smoke blasted into the sky. India had successfully detonated a nuclear device. The official announcement described it as a peaceful nuclear explosion. The world did not find that explanation particularly convincing. Washington was furious. Canada felt betrayed because technology from its civilian reactor program had indirectly helped India's research. Sanctions arrived quickly. Diplomatic pressure followed. The message from major powers was blunt. India must abandon its nuclear ambitions and sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty. India did something unexpected. It ignored the pressure. Behind the scenes, Indian leaders understood a quiet geopolitical truth. The Cold War was raging, and neither the United States nor the Soviet Union wanted India pushed into the rival camp. India was simply too important to isolate completely. For the next 2 decades, India maintained what analysts called nuclear ambiguity. The world knew the country had tested a bomb, but the full extent of its capabilities remained hidden. Then, in 1998, India shocked the world again. A new government approved an operation so secret even senior ministers were unaware. Operation Shakti. At the same Pokhran desert site, India conducted 5 nuclear tests in just 72 hours. The explosions confirmed that India had not merely experimented with nuclear technology. It had mastered it. One of the devices was announced as a thermonuclear design. India was signaling that it now possessed the full spectrum of nuclear capability. The reaction was immediate. Sanctions returned. International criticism intensified. And just days later, Pakistan conducted its own nuclear tests, turning South Asia into a region with 2 nuclear-armed rivals. For a brief moment, the world genuinely feared escalation. Yet something surprising happened next. Instead of isolating India permanently, global powers slowly began re-engaging. The reality was impossible to ignore. In 2008, the United States made a historic decision. President George W. Bush and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh signed the Indo-US Civil Nuclear Agreement. It was an extraordinary moment. India had never signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And yet it was now being treated as a responsible nuclear state. Today, India is believed to possess roughly 160 nuclear warheads. A capability built slowly across decades despite sanctions, pressure, and global resistance. The most remarkable part of the story is not just the weapons themselves. It is how India reached that position. It refused to sign the rules written by the nuclear powers. It endured sanctions and diplomatic pressure. And it waited long enough for geopolitical reality to catch up. In international politics, power often decides which rules matter. In 1974, India detonated a bomb that the world said it was not allowed to build. Half a century later, that same world treats India as one of the responsible stewards of nuclear technology. Sometimes the rules are not permanent laws of history. Sometimes they are simply written by the countries who got there first. If you've liked our video, please hit that like and subscribe button